Well, hello. I know I'm just sitting here staring at the screen. I'm trying to get everything going and running because I did not plan this one out. I did not really do anything to get ready or anything like that. I just started streaming and wanted to just hang out today because I'm bored. And why am I bored? Well, our game group is not running today because people have many things to do, and that's cool. That's awesome. I am all for that. If you are got cool stuff to do, that's awesome. I look for a doc here. I'm looking for chat. I seriously don't expect anybody to come into the chat because this isn't planned. Haven't had any time to prepare. I'm just opening it up, kind of bored. Um, Want to talk about anything and everything. Maybe just could be just a half hour and that's it. And then we just move on with our lives, everybody. But let's see what's happening here. And I keep losing the chat window. Really kind of annoying, to be honest with you. Calling an OBS problem. So, all right. So again, I don't expect anybody even beyond the chat, but I might as well show it while we're going. So I was spending a little time thinking about my Savage Worlds campaign that's going on right now and some of the things going on, kind of stars and wishes. So, what is the campaign? Well, the campaign is the players are part of this group called the Vanguard, which is sort of protectors of the galaxy. They go from planet to planet in their ship and they um, sort of solve problems. They're a little bit of the police force of the galaxy. They're also an independent agency, so they're not really tied to any particular government. So they have a lot of freedom, and the players really have had a good time with that, I think. And it's been a little bit hard in some regards trying to weave in all their stories because they come from such disparate backgrounds. Some of the players are what we call Rajnites, which are sort of cybered up people, almost like Borg-like, but not that same kind of thing. But they are all cyberware. Their whole society is based on cyber things and being chromed up, and that's all very important to them. And that is everything that all about them. So um, those players have a sort of backstory where the like an uncle who was part of a secret society, or I don't know if it's really a secret society. I'm trying to think how to think of it, but sort of like the KGB, I guess. And they sort of had to escape from that environment. And so, how do I weave that person coming back in was a question that I had. I had another folks who's a Buellerite, who's a rock person, and they had found kind of honor was everything. So they found disrespect because the people that they served, they were like a protector, a bodyguard. They'd fallen from grace, and so the players obviously were falling from grace too, and they were came back and started killing off the people who had caused the problem. So now they're a little bit wanted and weave that in. So that was kind of interesting. And then finally, we've got a person who we always tease as just ordinary Andrew, because Andrew's like the most normal human being, atypical, nothing special about them, blends into the background because he is a synth and a synthetic person who's basically all about stealth, all about that sort of thing, sneaking in, being unassuming. Nobody even thinks about him, and it turns out that his story also has to be weaved in, and so lots of different pieces, all very disparate. I've done a pretty good job. Andrew now realizes that he is sort of the vanguard, or he lost his memory, but he's starting to learn that one of the races that are kind of what do I call them, sort of mysterious, and they attacked colonies and they were pushed back after a big battle years and years and years ago. They're trying to come back in, and they've basically have high technology around physiology and biotechnology and that sort of thing, and he's part of that. Then we also had, from a Buellerite standpoint, we did a set of adventures where they're trying, where the cousin of the family that was in disgrace was trying to come back and show off that they are back, that they are innocent, and trying to prove that out. And so there was adventures where that player and team went and gathered some data, got some information that would protect them from or would exonerate them from any wrongdoing. And so that happened. So now we're at the stage where, though, we're getting a big crescendo where we've got um, the players involved in sort of this large uh, galaxy-wide thing that's going on with this race called the Wrath that is coming and trying to push back in, and the Vanguards, the Buellerites, the Raginites all have a common enemy that they're going against, and the players are kind of part of that. They're right now in these talks are happening, and big things are happening around them that they're not really sure exactly what's going on. Somebody snuck onto their ship, is attacking their ship, doing things where they came and they have to stop them. But that's because there's something nefarious going on, that they were trying to pull them away from these talks, because they knew that they were part of the folks that might be a problem for this plan, because they obviously are very capable. So I'm really working hard on trying to figure out how we're going to wrap up all these things, how the players who are very important to the story are kind of but it's a galaxy-wide problem, and how do they play into it? In some cases, they've been a little hesitant to take on that role, and it's like, well, shouldn't that be like the big guys doing that? Shouldn't they be doing the talking? Why am I doing the talking? And I keep having to coming back to this, like, you guys are trusted. I trust you, and that's why I want you to be the ones who are part of that. So a lot of fun, just playing around with some of those concepts. It's been a fun campaign. I've had a couple that have been my favorites. One of them was Chicagoplex, which was a cyberpunk kind of game, and that one had multiple factions. It had a large corporation trying to take over. It just took place in the free city of Chicago, trying to take over Chicago through a very complicated plot. But there was also a group that was using artificial intelligence and artificial creatures to try to artificial humans trying to take on, and these bioengineering things also take over the city. But they were kind of working for the same goal at the same time, so the players were getting pulled in multiple directions. So that's really one of my favorites. And then probably the second favorite is what I called After the Singularity, which was primarily a campaign that takes place after there was a great singularity, war, something happened where all knowledge disappeared and the players are coming back. They're in the Victorian era of technology, though there was this ancient civilization that was far more technologically advanced, that something happened to them. But there was a big digital dark ages. So a lot of the information is gone. There's a few books from before this big society grew that the players have found, and one of the players was all about collecting those and that sort of thing. So that was my favorite, because they got to use some futuristic technology. They had to learn how to use it. There were like robots and hunter killers from that were awakened from the past, and then they met species, humans from the past who had been frozen, and then one of the things that, from a technology standpoint, that might have been part of the reason there was a singularity was nanotechnology. And if you know me, you know I love using nanobots and nanotechnology as part of a plot, part of plots. And so there was nanotechnology that could just modify creatures. And so there was all sorts of crazy creatures that had been modified because of this nanotechnology. So that was one of my favorites, and super enjoyed that one. And I'm hoping that this campaign we have a great crescendo, that it happens and goes really well. So that's my goal. And we're working getting there, and we had some interesting stuff going on if the players could have played this week, but they couldn't, and that's okay. Um, so some people have, you know, messaged me and said, okay, what's the deal with, the move and all that kind of stuff? And um, so I moved. Not really. It's for a job, and so I'm kind of moved across the country for the job, but I didn't sell my house and I didn't, any of that kind of stuff. So I have that home base of operation, which is where all my stuff is. So all I have is the stuff I brought with me. And so I brought the most important Savage Worlds books I have, but all of my other stuff is back at the house, and um, which is kind of a bummer because lots of times when I was in the podcast or I was talking to folks in live streams and stuff like that, I'd reach back and I'd grab one of my books off the shelf that was somewhat pertinent to the conversation and be able to show that. So, but it is what it is. The jobs are a job. This is a hobby. Playing games is just for fun. Doing the YouTube channels just for fun. It's all just for fun. And so you have to make money in order to survive. And that's what I did. I like my job. I like the people I work with. It's great technology. I manage a large team. I'm a director of a large team of engineers making software for an interesting product. I won't get too much into it, but it's really kind of fun. I live in an interesting area now, so out on the West Coast, northwest, and interesting, different than Wisconsin, where most people know I'm from. It's hard to get a Packers game out here, to be honest. You have to go to the bar to do it. Well, but that's kind of the nature of the beast, and that's kind of how it goes. So yeah, that's the move. I'm enjoying the new challenges and all that kind of good stuff while still bringing Savage Worlds content to the community. Was pretty stoked that Shane felt one of my videos recently was nice enough for him to post it on the official Savage Worlds Facebook community, which I don't post stuff on too often anymore because I feel like I'm spamming, and I don't do that for the well, yeah, not Washington, Oregon, close enough. But I can't believe Steve, you're with me. Just chatting away here. Just thought I'd pull it up. So yeah, so in Oregon, beautiful, the state of Oregon there. We just had rain, which I guess is the winter that I'm about to enjoy is rain, 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 rain. Which I don't know, it's probably going to be better than Midwest where it's snow, snow, snow and blowing snow and frigid temperatures. So we'll see how that turns out. So yeah, that's my big bookshelf now with all my books and everything I have. I've also so I've got the team, and I'm kind of a programmer by trade, a developer, engineer, and so I've fallen down this rabbit hole. I'm big on projects. I like to do projects, and it sort of goes. So I've got my gaming projects and all the things I want to do there, and then I got programming projects and stuff I want to do there, and so I have way too much stuff on my plate. I should really pare down and maybe just jump more headlong into something. I had a podcast for a while with Eric and others, and that kind of petered out because it was hard keeping everybody sort of, what would I say, kind of engaged. Podcasts are hard. You really have to have some passion and be able to do it. And I was like excited to do it and figure out what we're going to say each week and bring out scripts. And it was hard to kind of get sometimes the co-host to sort of get excited as I was. So we pod faded, which it happens. You can still get the old episodes. I didn't drop support. Yeah, I didn't drop support. So you can still, Mastering the RPG is still out there, and hopefully we'll start doing some stuff before. Just started getting into Suede. All right, Steve, you're gonna have fun. I just did a video, the one I was mentioning, Shane, which was how to get your players into Savage Worlds and all the interesting stuff. So I don't know if you're a game master. I don't know if you're a player, but Savage Worlds has so much going for it from the standpoint of there's the saying fast, furious, and fun. Really, combat can go fast. It can go slow too if people kind of don't know what they're really doing, and you're not helping them out, and they're scratching their head. It can go slow too, but it's really kind of a fast, frantic, frantic, frenetic, frantic. I don't know. It's really kind of the game goes really quick. It's a great system. Some of the things I really like about it. Um, oh, no players. That's Steve. I know exactly what you're talking about. I had a hard time finding players. That all of my games are online. Almost every game I've played in the last 4 years has been online, except for conventions. I love conventions because I do get to bring players into the Savage Worlds community because this is sometimes the first time they played it. But then get the face to face. It's so much easier. One of the cool things about Savage Worlds is bennies, and you can spend them on re-rolls. You can spend them to get new action cards, which is what's used for initiative. You can use them for a lot of things, and they're really a fun meta currency to take advantage of. The biggest problem I have, I'm so bad with bennies. Online games, I am terrible. I never hand them out as often as I should. I forget to throw them to players when they're playing their hindrances or they're doing great role play. I just forget because there's like a little plus button on the bottom of the screen in Foundry next to the player's name, and so I just don't think of it. For conventions, though, I just got a handful. I do themed bennies. Like for example, for a Dragonlance game, I have bennies which are dragons. They're literally dragons, little dragon tokens, and I can keep a handful of those, and then as things happen, I can just toss them to players, and it's natural. It's so easy to do because you're in the moment. You've got them. They're physical. So much harder online. I suck online giving out bennies the way I should, but in a game, at a convention, they're flowing. They're flowing. They're flowing. They're flowing. So Steve, I know you say you prefer in face. I think everybody would prefer face to face. It's just hard. It's just really hard to get people, um, really find people who've got the time. They can invest the time. It's so much easier for someone to just kind of wander over to their computer, log on for 3 hours, play a game, then log off versus, driving 30 minutes to your house, driving home, having to commit, oh, they've got work. And so they're not getting out work in time and take some time. Sometimes they live in an area where it could be an hour commute. It's so much easier to do the online, but it's definitely not the same as face to face. It's not just bennies. It's you can stand up behind a table and you can make motions and you can do all sorts of kinds of stuff. And then the players can jump up. And when you're rolling, again, Savage Worlds has got the exploding die. When you're rolling and you get that explosion of a die, and then explodes again, and it's die rolling on a table and not just numbers appearing on the screen. People are jumping up. They're going, yeah, oh wow, I can't believe it. It just definitely has a cooler feel to it than online. But online is what I got, and and I have a great group of players, just fantastic. We've gone through. God, we got to be together for. I'm starting to think 4 odd plus years. We've been playing together, and we've done a whole bunch of campaigns. I mentioned at the start of the stream, Chicagoplex. We did the Singularity game. We did Gods Have Arisen, where the players become gods using the Superpowers Companion kind of thing. We've got the one that we're doing now. We just got done one where the players were actually in a simulation. The whole question of whether the universe is a simulation. Well, it turned out it was, and the player, excuse me, and the players were discovering that it was a simulation and kind of getting into under the covers of what was happening. Um, it was really kind of cool the way the players embraced that challenge, and then it was a little bit let down at the end because the simulation was being held by was being run by this master computer, master computer, and once they defeated him, the all the things that allowed them to kind of travel instantaneously and do things where they're like going behind the fabric of reality because they're reprogramming it and stuff like that. Well, that all went away. And so they're like stuck on this beautiful, lush planet with a whole bunch of other ships that had come to the rescue, you know, a whole armada that it came, and they're all like kind of stuck there. It was like, okay, I'm sorry, that's anticlimactic. Maybe I shouldn't have done it that way, but it seemed like a fitting end sometimes. So um, yeah, so yeah, theater to mind. Theater to mind is I'm doing a lot of that now. I like maps, and VTTs makes it easy to throw maps up. You know, you can copy them, get an online map, jump it in right away, drop some tokens. But I noticed for this particular campaign, it's hard to get a map that represents the scale of what's going on. And what I mean by that is, for example, the Buellerites, this race of rock creatures, they live in these humongous ships, kind of like colony ships that are humongous in each, and they're kind of like merchant type class people. And so each merchant class or each merchant family would have this large ship that they would travel on, and basically was their entire, you know, so, you know, miles and size and stuff like that. Well, it's kind of hard to just like, you know, and when they were trying to prove the innocence of the Buellerite player character, they were on the ship and it gets attacked. And just throwing up a map and then putting a couple tokens on it, it loses it lost the feel for. I mean, I wanted to describe the ship is huge, and so even the bridge is 5 layers tall with you know, walk bridges and hundreds of people roaming around doing things on terminals. And then when the bad guys attacked, there's a ton of them, and so the players have a local battle going on that they're working through, but there's hundreds of other things going on around them, and it's really hard without using theater of mind to kind of give a feel for that scale. When you just, here's the map, you're gonna, you know, kind of cut through all these tokens, and when you're done cutting through those tokens, you know, hurrah, you made it to the exit, and now you can, you know, leave the spaceship and do whatever you needed to do. I just think it loses that. So I like maps. I use them a lot. I think they're very useful. But I found in this campaign, Theater Mind, I was using a lot more than I would have thought. So yeah, that's kind of the way I'm thinking about Theater of the Mind. I lost my chat window again. I keep losing my chat window. I don't know, just me. So what else is going on? So it's great to hear, you know, that Steve, you're going to start playing some Savage Worlds. You GM. Um, I say you haven't tried online, but it's not perfect. The tools, you got to learn them. There's learning curves, but there's a lot of automation too. Like there's a Savage Worlds official release for Foundry, for example. I think there's one for Roll20 as well. And that takes on a lot of the stuff. You can drag edges over, you can drag things onto your sheet, and it makes it a lot easier to do some things that you might not be able to do paper and pencil. But of course, there's savage.us, which allows you to make characters and makes it easier to do some of that sort of thing. So there's some good utilities and resources out there that makes life easier. So what else is going on in the universe? So talked a little bit about my campaigns. I'm really hoping that this one comes to a good fruition. I'm actually looking forward to it ending. I don't know if others feel this way, but you know, after, I don't know how long this one's been going, probably 6 months to a year. After a while, it's time for the story to end. It's time to have a closure. I like things that are more like chapters of a book or you know, books that have, you know, maybe multiple books in the series, and you can do the other books, or you can just stop and you've read the first book and it's good and it's wholesome and it has everything you want. So I kind of like that feel versus campaigns that just kind of are episodic and they last forever. I really like to have a reason behind the campaign, but I don't put all the details in when I do a campaign. It's kind of like, here's a theme, and then the theme develops as the players, and we interact with the players, and we understand what the players are doing, and they drive the story. But I have a concept as to what's going on in the world in the background. Like I knew in this current campaign that the Wrath, who are the antagonistic species that very know very little bit, are coming back. They want to recover their land, or I don't know, recover the land. They want to push into the other people's lands. How that happened? How exactly? I didn't know that Andrew was going to be one of their agents and be, one of their synths that they made using biotechnology. I wasn't sure that that was it. I had an idea. I thought that'd be great to have him linked there, but I didn't know how that happened until his character grew, and the way he built out his understanding of his character and who his character was and how he played him, role played him, and that sort of thing really guided me and say, yeah, this makes total sense from this player standpoint. It could have gone another direction, right? He could have been from some other thing, like it could have been a secret experiment run by the Vanguard, that the Vanguard are hiding from the public because they're trying to do something, and the Vanguard is supposed to be the good guys. They could have turned into the bad guys. You have to kind of roll with the punches on how that is. So I'm also falling down the rabbit hole. So I do software and manage a software team, and I've fallen down the rabbit hole of 8-bit retro computing again. I was a Commodore 64 guy, had one when I was a kid, and now I'm like doing Commodore 64 programming. And what am I doing naturally? I'm doing a dice roller. I literally do dice rollers for everything. So anytime I learn a new language or I do a dice roller. It's just fun to do them. So I'm doing that for the 64. It has, actually I could just show it. Let me see. So I was just working on it earlier, so this isn't done, so the formatting and everything is not perfect, but so yeah, it's a little dice roller. Let me start it up. So it's a little dice roller. Things bounce around the screen every time you roll. Something might bounce in. So I'm rolling D100s. You get the value. You don't know what's going to happen. It's just more interesting. So what is it showing me? It's showing me how to do bitmaps. I'm using sprites. I'm using collisions and all sorts of interesting stuff. There's interrupts and all sorts of crap. But so yeah, I do a dice roller every time. Have to do a dice roller. That's just the thing. So hey, who joined? Anyone else? Oh, hey there. Hey there, Jeff. How you doing? Yeah, I don't normally live stream. I mentioned at the beginning, no one was here. It was just me talking, but it's like I'm so bored tonight. I'm so bored because my game session was canceled. My normal Friday night game canceled. People had stuff to do. That's perfectly fine. We cancel all the time. But it's like, God, I'm just like sitting around and not doing anything, and I'm tired of just watching TV. So it was like, you know, um, I figured I'd go and just start live streaming. Yeah, Jeff, it's good that you're doing well. I'm doing well. I mentioned I just moved. I dropped a couple of episodes. I wasn't doing some episodes of Tabletop Tango for a month or two because I was moving. I finally am in a new place. I got everything set up. I've started doing some shows. I need to get some acoustical treatment because this area I'm in is kind of reflective, and so you probably can hear that it's kind of bouncy and the sound's a little bit echoey, but hopefully I can get that resolved. But yeah, I moved for a job. My main base is still in Wisconsin. That's where my house is. That's where my family is. But things are going well. It's starting to be the rainy season where I'm at now, but things are going well. I'm enjoying the job. I love the team. And if all honesty, my wife's not giving me as much a hard time about sitting here and live streaming in the middle of a Friday night, because normally she'd be like, "Why are you wasting your time on that right now? You should be doing something else." And oh, you got gaming again tonight? Oh, I thought we were going to watch some TV, and so it's kind of like that. But that's just Oh, good. I'm glad the sound is okay. I'm super happy about that. So, but yeah, I think I still need to do something. It's a small space with closed wall, and I don't have, like in my old studio, I had a huge shelf of books, which I don't know, that really helps with sound reflection. That paper and having that dense, and then I used to where I recorded was in a basement, and so I had a large open area past me, and so my voice would go a long way before it would reflect, and so it would lose a lot of the reflections, and so it was a little tighter. Um, so good. So what else? I mean, I got a couple of folks here. I'm glad you guys found me. Anything you want to talk about? I can talk about some of the games, some of the stuff we're working on, some of the videos coming up that I want to do that might be interesting to people. Um, I'm sorry, I'm losing my track. I'm trying. I got bad eyes, so I have to get close to read this. Um, oh yeah, cool, Jeff. That'd be. We'll see how that goes. Yeah. Send an. I don't know if you've already ever sent an email, but send an email to a Savage Worlds GM at gmail.com. Anybody can send anything that you want to talk about at the show, or pretty much anything. So a Savage Worlds GM, and that's a Savage Worlds plural GM. So yeah, it's just send me a note, and we can always figure something out. I'd love to talk to anybody, and really talk about folks in the community and things going on. I just did a show with Crystal Hearts. They have a great product, really cool. Steve, you might be interested in this. I don't know, but they do. You may not know, but the Crystal Heart is a web comic that shows players playing Savage Worlds, and so you can learn how to play Savage Worlds by watching this comic. And they're bringing out a hardcover. I don't know if it's hardcover or softcover, but they're bringing out all of the episodes kind of in a single book format that they're going to come out. Now, the only caveat is if you're into powers and you're into spell casting and stuff like that, they have their completely different powers mechanism that they use for their because every person has a crystal embedded in their chest, which gives them arcane powers, and so everybody has arcane powers. It's set up so that you usually succeed instead of failing, and then there's just like a fail forward mechanism, or succeed while failing. I don't know, should write the mechanism fail forward. You always basically, for the most part, succeed. Um, Getting you shut up is the hard part. Yeah, they usually go an hour. My videos, when I do videos, are pretty tight, 10 to 20 minutes at the most. But when we start talking about stuff, then it takes a long time to go through this, especially if somebody's got something interesting. I always like somebody to have somebody come on if they got a product or a service or something that they're advertising, or they're trying to kickstart or something. I love to have them on so the community learns about that. But we always have to have a topic. So Crystal Heart, for example, was no PowerPoints. Let's talk about your no PowerPoint system, how it works, what's interesting about it. So a rules part. So I've had people on talk about um, all sorts of interesting rules interpretations, and how to be a better GM while talking about their products and services that they offer to the community. So I feel that makes the hour time that we spend together much more um, useful, interesting, and that sort of thing. So, what kind of videos should I be doing? Right now, the next one is kind of related to being a great player. So, I just did a video on how to get into Savage Worlds, get players interested in it. Now, I'm doing a video on how to be a great player. I swear I've done a video on this before, but we're at about 250 videos. It's very easy to forget what I've already talked about. And you know what? There's always a new take. Something I talked about 4 years ago, I've got a completely different way of thinking about it. It's time to talk about it again. Eric and I were going to do another set of things on edges, but we started off doing the background edges, and then we just sort of dropped it on the floor. We haven't gotten back to doing more of that because it's hard to get he and I together on the same screen at the same time. He's got stuff going on, I got stuff going on. It's really tough to get us together at the same time to be able to record something of that. I'll say magnitude because those shows go long. They're definitely, we're talking 45 hour, sometimes hour 20 minutes for all that content. And sometimes I'm trying to figure out whether people like the long form, whether they prefer the short term form. Um, oh yeah, do I talk about whether I ever play more person or online? Steve and I were just talking about that before you joined. So I play primarily online now. I've had a hard time, and I've had the same game group for almost like 4 years now online. 5 years maybe? I don't know, long time. Probably before I started the channel, I had these folks. So I play mostly online because that's the most convenient and most easy. I love conventions though. When I go to conventions, I game master a lot of slots because I love seeing people getting into the game, playing live in person. I talked about how I suck at bennies when we're talking about a virtual tabletop because I forget to push the button. But at a table, you got a handful of bennies and you're gaming, and somebody does something clever, you just toss them a benny and bennies are flowing. It's just incredible, you know. So um, oh my God. Yeah, Steve's trying to get his head check around the chase rules. The chase rules are complicated. Um, the thing that you have to uh, those are advanced. I would start with the core rules. Throw some dramatic tasks in or a social conflict, and then come up to chase because you can run a chase as a dramatic task. You don't have to run a chase with the cards laid out and are you moving forward? Are you doing a maneuvering roll? Or what? You can do it completely as a dramatic task, and it works out fantastic as a dramatic task. A chase. It's very much more. What's the term I'm looking for? Abstract. Chases themselves are pretty abstract, but it's even more abstract. But you can completely use that if you're not comfortable with the chase rules. Chase rules, what you got to wrap your head around is you can do things each round like maneuver or bump or your combat stuff. But the whole movement, there's the idea of maneuvering roll. You get a free one, which you can maneuver, or you can use an action to maneuver, which gives you a bonus on that roll, but it's still just one action. So there's like the free version, and then there's I'm doing a full action so that I can move farther. And that's the hard one to wrap your head around because it's like, wait a sec, there's maneuver roll, but then there's a maneuver action, and then when I get hit and I got damage, I have to do roll out of control, and that means I got to do another maneuvering roll. So it can be a little bit complicated. Now there's a chase deck for Savage Pathfinder, and I think they may have one for Deadlands too, which is a card deck. It's like almost like a card game that you use for chases, and it's really good. I mean, you're playing the cards, and you might get a bonus, you might get some things going on. Eric and I did a video with Chris Valentine, who was on our podcast before we kind of it fell down a little bit, but it's a really nice, fast, fun way of doing it, and it's really for foot chases, but if you get a hold of that deck, and I don't know if I brought my chase deck with me when I came out here, but okay, but that's really fun and fast furious, and that's really good if you can get your hands on it. Oh, you did? Okay. All right. Made your own deck for a horror game based on a Deadlands deck. Nice. That is pretty cool. So there is a Deadlands deck. I knew there was. So I've only had the Pathfinder deck, and we did a overview of that and went through it on the channel. Of course, content. Something new. We got to do something on the channel for content. So it's the chase deck is pretty fun. Chases are a little complicated and they're a little. It's like, well, you get a club, and that's a disadvantage. But is it if it's an action card or if it's the card you're on, or it can be a little complicated. So dramatic tasks are a great way to go, and dramatic tasks are so fun. You know, because you gotta earn tokens, and I don't know how many. I run a convention game called the Helix Nebula Situation, where you're on a spaceship that gets you wake up. You're robots, and you wake up to help out the crew, but there's no crew because the robots they get woken up to help the crew out, but there's no crew, and they try to figure out what's going on. And the end of it is a huge dramatic task to try to get the engines running again while all these um, creatures are after them that they figured out what's going on and all that kind of stuff. And there's goo trying to stop them, and but it's a huge dramatic task. And when that last player rolls the last die and gets the final token, and you say, "Yep," you take that big switch and you go, and the whole thing fire. They're just like they're jumping up and down. They're having such a good time. So, um, why isn't Suede more popular? I think um, I think Suede's not more pop. It's just there's so many niche games, right? It's I wouldn't call it a niche. It's in the second tier of popularity. I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot now. What I'm amazed at is some of the games that have just come out, like Shadow Dark. How Shadow Dark went from nothing to everybody's talking about it. It's on everybody's lips, and it's partly because it's kind of a D&D thing, right? And it brought some uh, new OSR kind of feel for D&D, but had a modern flavor to it, and so it really kind of took off because of that. Savage Worlds is different, right? It's different mechanics. It feels different. It plays different. It's got its strengths. Fantasy for a long time wasn't one of its strengths. Now with Savage Pathfinder, it is a lot. You can play it really well. It does fantasy really well. It always did, but people felt it didn't do it well because you couldn't get a +5 Holy Avenger because +5 in Savage Worlds is basically guaranteeing a raise every time on an attack. So you didn't get that kind of magical um, explosion, to get pluses and stuff like that. So, but yeah, I always tried to figure out because I fell in love with the minute I played it. So for a long time, I played primarily at conventions, and I did D&D First Edition, even when Third Edition was king, and I did a lot of that. And then I got kind of out of it, and I only played at conventions. I mean, I don't really want to GM a game, but I don't want to do D&D. I'm kind of sick of fantasy, and I found this little $10 Savage Worlds book for deluxe, and I went through. It's like, oh, I can run a game just on this book alone. It's got everything I needed, and I did a buddy cop campaign right away with it because everything you need in the book in deluxe you could have do a buddy cop kind of thing right away, right out of it. It was so much fun. It was like it's just got the right flavor, it's got the right flair, it's got a cool feeling to it. Things go fast. Players have a lot of options they can do, and now with Suede, there's even more options. So it just kind of fell in love with it. And I think most people who play it, um, unless they're dyed in the wool and they have to roll d20s or whatever, they go, hey, this is cool and I really enjoy it. And they may not play it all the time, but I think they would end up playing it sometimes and maybe doing a campaign if they had a chance. So, oh, interludes are cool too. There's things I suck at. Bennies I suck at online, not so much in person. And then interludes. I never think of doing interludes. We do so much role playing in my group. We've got people interacting and role playing, but I never think of, oh, you guys are traveling. Let's pull out a deck of cards and see what's going on your travels and talk about in travels. I wish and I did a video that said, interludes. I did a video on interludes are cool, but why aren't I using them? Because basically I don't even think of doing it, but they are really cool. I totally agree with you. Yeah, Dead Ends Dark Ages sounds like it's a pretty cool thing. For a while there was the weird West kind of style things for they had one for the Roman times. I can't remember what that was called, but there was kind of that weird West thing for the Roman times. But now we've got Deadlands itself in the Dark Ages. I did not kickstart it, unfortunately. I'm kind of again I was in the middle of the move. I don't have a ton of room. I don't know if I was, I kind of snoozed on that one, but it does look it didn't doesn't boy, I lost my train of thought here. Well, welcome, Mark. I think I just noticed you joined there. So um, I don't I don't do live streams very often, but I'm doing one tonight just for fun. Weird Wars. There it is. That's what it was called. Thank you. Weird Wars. So uh, yeah, so that Dark Ages looks pretty cool. I really got into the opposite side, Deadlands Lost Colony, which was future Deadlands. And I just totally, I ran a campaign in it. We had just a blast because it was so cool. It had a Firefly kind of feel to it because this colony got cut off from Earth. But yes, there were evil forces from where um, the oh my god, their name went right out of my head. But the four horsemen of apocalypse, one of them came over and they had to stop them, and it was just fantastic, to have that sort of Firefly feel, but still had technology, and it's not old west, but they're walking around and they've got some decent guns, but they're still it's still dusty and dirty and dark. So that was a lot of fun. So um, yeah, I use Foundry VTT. That's the one. I used to use Roll20, but then it got flaky for a while, and so I went to Foundry, and I self-host. So I run Foundry on my computer. I don't use any of the hosting services, and it's great. It just changes so often. So like I don't change a Foundry version in the middle of campaign. So I'm still on Foundry version 12, and everybody's like, "Oh, move to 13, move to 13." It's like I'm not going to do that in the middle of a campaign. It's kind of like you don't if you're a music producer or you're mixing videos or something, you don't have a big project and you update your OS in the middle of a project. You just don't do it, and I don't do that with the Foundry. So what do you mean it's not for deep role playing? Who says that? They're crazy. It's like it's totally for deep role playing because there's so much things you can do. You can do you It's all about role playing. When you do a dramatic task, it's all about role playing while you're doing the role, and why is that role pertinent to what you're doing? Why can you use this skill to do this thing? Social conflicts. It's all about role playing. It's just and then when you're doing a test, even in combat, you're doing a test. It's like, what does that look like? How does that feel? What are you doing? Oh, well, I'm taunting. What do you say and how you say it? And it's like, oh, I'm going to do this and this. It's all about role playing. It's so much more role playing, I think, than even D&D is. But that's personal. That's personal opinion. So who said and combat's not fast? Oh, I find combat really fast in Savage Worlds compared to high level D&D where it's kind of a slog through hip. It's that there's not hit points thing. I think is so a good hit and you're going to whittle people down quickly. There's ways of making combat longer if they're too short and they're not interesting. You can layer things. So you can layer bad guys, have a lieutenant with a bunch of minions, and then have more minions, and make sure the big evil guy is not standing out in the open waiting to get one shotted. So there's ways of expanding it, but combat doesn't have to be fast. Plus, you've got quick encounters. So if combat is slogging and you're just tired of it, finish it off with a quick encounter and you're done. And I don't use, and one of the things in D&D all the time people talk about is random encounters. I don't like random encounters. I don't use them. I didn't even use them when I was in D&D, but things had a reason for existing. I know it was there to help push the players along and get them to move because creatures are moving around in the dungeon. The things are happening, whether you are doing anything or not. But in Savage Worlds, you can bring in quick encounters and do or have a random encounter and then use quick encounters to finish it up so it doesn't bog down play, but you still have an opportunity to role play and say this is a dangerous place because things are happening, but we're not going to bog down and have set up combat for you to kill off 5 goblins, right? We're just going to do something fast and show that it's dangerous. um Oh, he fixed the monster. Well, monster stats. That's the beauty of Savage Worlds is that it's not a stat block heavy game. You can make changes on the fly quickly, and you can make monsters quickly. I mean, literally, I, I'm a fan of just have things do what they need to do and not worry about whether it's an edge or not. So if you want your creatures to attack first, when somebody gets near them, you don't think, oh, that's first strike. It's just this is just the way the creatures are. It's just a special ability, and then you can very quickly say, well, something that's very good at something's a D10, something that's okay at it's a D6. This creature that's like all about attacking with claws, that's going to be a D12. It's going to be strong. Another D12 throw at it. It's going to have these special abilities, and you can just do that on the fly without having to have a monster manual. Now it's cool to have a monster, to have like the Savage Pathfinder Bestiary and stuff like that. It's cool, but you just don't need it. And that was the thing when I was using the core book in Deluxe just for my games. I just used the little monster section in the back and said, well, this thing is kind of like this. It feels like this, but it's got these special abilities and it would work this way. And then I'm done. I'm just throwing it at the players, and you don't need to have um, like I mean, D&D, there's like people who make a living making monster books. That's all they do is they make monster books and sell a new monster with new stat blocks and new abilities. And you don't really need that. You can just let your creativity go. Um, so yeah. So I don't know. Some people didn't come. Some people didn't come in when I showed off my dice roller. But so you missed out. Um, I can show it off still. I'll still show it off. You don't see the title screen, which tells you which button to hit. Um, so look at I'm rolling a D100, and then things can bounce off of it. And this is all a Commodore 64 application because I fell down this 8-bit rabbit hole. So anyway, but there's things that I think are cool that nobody else in the world would think are cool, but I think they're cool. My wife is definitely says, "Why do you spend so much time screwing around with stuff that has no no value like that?" It was like, I don't know, I just like I just like doing it. I have like I've done a Stream Deck application, which is on my website. You can get it um, from my website, webcommando.com, which allows you to run macros on Foundry. So with one button push on a Stream Deck, you can run any macro on Foundry. And so I use that in my games all the time to do like and it'll run a macro. So I've got macros that zoom in, macros that zoom out, macros that do a quick roll in a certain way. And so, I have a macro that makes the token walk to the edge of the map because I'm very much on the walk of shame for tokens on my VTT. I don't like delete them or kill them. I just get them off the map. So push the button and they just kind of walk off to the corner with one button push. And so, yeah, it turns out it's valuable, even though it's like just a geeky, weird thing to do. So, um, yeah, I know I'm not a big fan of balanced encounters. I think again, you give the players. Yeah, so I have a saying, and I stole this from some other Savage Worlds podcast or something later. I think it was the Savage Worlds GM podcast or something. But and they probably stole it from someone else. But I'm in the problems department. I'm not in the solutions department. So my department is to make the problems, which may be a big combat, it may be a difficult combat, it may be a problem. The players are in the business of solving the problems and coming up with solutions that make sense because the players have so much more over because they can wade through tons of extras. The guy will do a blast on a bunch of extras, or they have powers that their number of what's the term we always talk about, um, the number of attacks they can do compared to the number of attacks other people are doing on them tends to be lopsided. The action economy tends to fall for the players because there's 5 players and there may be a couple of groups of bad guys, and so they're in better shape anyway. So I don't pull punches. Funny thing, I just did a video. Don't pull punches on your players, where it's like just give them the problem and it's up to them to solve it. And the players had in my current campaign, they had a spot where they almost got party killed because they did a dumb thing. They knew there was a ton of bad guys there. They saw them. They had one of the players who was very sneaky, stealthed it in and saw there's a lot of guys here and some of them look really tough. But then he decided he was going to do something that was kind of dumb and he got caught. And so all the bad guys, yes, all the bad guys are going to attack now. What are you going to do to save yourselves? That's not my problem. I just, here's the problem. You guys could have done it, solved the problem in so many different ways. You could go in guns a blazing and probably would have surprised them and took a bunch out, or you could stealth around, or you could just try to, avoid it altogether, because what you're trying to do is they're trying to get somebody who had been kidnapped, and that was on this table. Maybe you could have snuck in and got them off the table while something else is going on, or whatever. There's all sorts of stuff they probably could have done. But you know what? I'm not thinking about that. That's if they come up with an awesome solution, it's going to work, because it's probably cooler than anything I could have come up with that says, oh, the players have to do this, this, and this to solve the puzzle. They're going to come up with so much more creative stuff. So I'm in the problem department. They're in the solution department. That's how it works out. Social combat. Well, social combat. That's where social conflicts. I don't know if that's what you mean. The social conflicts rule comes in. It's very so. The way I run them is the players who are going to support each other and do stuff. They work together, and then they are talking. They are providing. If somebody says, I'm going to use intimidation to support your role, well, then it's like, how are you intimidating? Role play that out a little bit. But I still use their stats. I'm not going to penalize someone who's not a great orator, because their character might be, even though they aren't. But it's like, hey, tell me how those are working, and then we do the role and the social conflict, and then I role play out the person that they're going against, who provides their counter argument and why they're thinking it's wrong. And sometimes that makes the player have to think a different way, or go back on their heels because I'm not listening to them in the way they thought. And so it goes back and forth. But social conflict is a really good rules mechanism for kind of, um, again, gamifying we're back and forth. You've got 3 rounds to see if you can convince them, or see, and it's not just a single roll of the die. And if you get lucky and it's an opposed roll, you're in great shape. It's really kind of a mechanism that helps out with that. I don't know if that's what you're thinking about. So, um, yeah, you put a dragon at the end and the players just attack. So yeah, that's I have a game, a convention game in Savage Worlds. It was originally a D&D game, called uh, the the Lost Tower of Taladus, which is a Dragonlance based game, where they found a lost tower of sorcery, of high sorcery, that was on a continent that nobody knew had one of these. They never thought it had one. And so the players are going in to try to get to the artifact that they learned legendary is there. And there's a dragon in there. And when I first played test it, the players would attack the dragon. It's a long story how the dragon got in there, but the dragon is polymorphed, and it's pretending to be that it's somebody who's been like trapped here for ages, and the players let them go and that sort of thing. But anyway, they attacked it, and it turned into a combat, and it was a slog. And so I turned that into a dramatic task instead. And the dramatic task was the players who go down to help this person get trapped down there. And then what are all the players doing? Again, role playing and figuring out what skills to use to help the players who are down there, or outsmart the dragon or whatever, but they're not attacking it. I got rid of the combat because the players would combat, and it would like just bog down the whole thing. So this goes back to how Savage Worlds has so many different ways to solve a problem. That's not just combat. You can, I could have turned that into, just a quick encounter that's dangerous and negative, and they come out of it and they survived and they get out the door, but they've got 2 wounds now, and now they move on to the rest of the dungeon. So there's so much stuff you can do to make it, but it goes to show that you really have to play test all your convention games, because the original one in D&D was just a creature, was a big dragon, and the assumption was the players weren't going to attack it because it's too tough. And you know what? I got lucky. Most of the players didn't, but there was occasionally when they did, and one big blast of the breath weapon and getting hit with all that damage usually got them smart enough to try to skedaddle and escape and move on with their lives and continue their search. So when doing a session 0, do you coach the players? Well, when we do our session zero, we usually know kind of the concept of this of the game, what we're going to do, what the campaign's about, and then the players tend to talk to each other, work it out, to well, I want to be this, I want to be that, I want to be this kind of player, without even talking about their backstory or anything. It's usually, oh, I'm thinking about, I'm going to be kind of a powers with more of this. It's like, oh, I'm more of a hacker player and I want to be more of this. Can I be the face character with the leadership edges this time? So they kind of think through that way. And I think the coaching we do, and Eric is my buddy, who does shows with me on this, but he's also in my game. He's like definitely the rules guy. He does a really good job of working with the players, the other players, while I'm getting games going and I'm working on the game master side of it. When players are doing their level ups, their advances, really helping them see the future. And so I would say, yes, we help coach the players as they're going through the ranks, and saying, where do I want to go? It's like, have you thought about this? And should you maybe get up your attributes, because you do want to have level headed. So you need to hire this and you need all that kind of stuff. He really does a great job. And we do help coach to understand where they want to be. So it's kind of like, where do you want to be when you grow up? And then what kind of things can we do to get you there? And that changes over time, right? Because people, oh, I was having too much fun, in combat, so I don't want to be the non-combat guy. I want to pick up some combat skills or edges or whatever. So uh, kind of, in early stages, don't do a lot of coaching because it's more about those initial edges and things like that, which aren't that difficult. But if we do start the game like at season, then we definitely have to talk to players and understand what they're trying to do, because it's you've got a couple of edges that you are that you could have had. You could have had um, an attribute increase and all these things that you would normally have time to think about. You got to do at character creation. So. Um, Player has attack first mentality. Well, I've got a player who's a burn first mentality right now. He likes to burn things. That's like his thing. I don't know what the deal is, but he's always trying to start fires. But um, like I said, I'm in the problem department. So if there's a thing that they think they want to attack, okay, fine. You got the consequences. Whether there's too many people against them, whether now that faction remembers that they, attacked them and did something, so now that faction's no longer positive to them, and now they've got a little mark on their head. I just let the chips fall where they may. If the players want to Leroy Jenkins, that's completely on them. They can do that. Again, I'm just offering up the problem. I try not to make the problem so hard that if they do decide that combat is the best approach, that I know they're going to lose. I try not to do that, but I don't balance, right? Because if a big boss is in his fort with his minions, he's going to have lots of minions and he's going to have lieutenants, and that's just the way it's going to be, right? There's not, oh, he's alone in his throne room, because that's allows the players to come in and take them out easily enough. They're going to have to get there, and they're going to have to do it through stealth or through smarts or through whatever, right? Yeah. So the headquarter rules, they're pretty cool, and they're in a couple of books, right? They first came out in a Savage, these. Oh my god, Superpowers Companion. Well, actually, it was more in Rippers, right? Rippers had headquarters first, but I mean that was deluxe. But in Suede, I think the Superpowers Companion was the first one. It's nice. It gives a kind of a framework that you can work from. I haven't really used it in that regard though. So like this campaign I'm doing now, the players have a ship, but we never went and said, oh well, there's a negative and there's a positive and there's something. I'm trying to remember all the rules, but there's like four things that you pick out. There's somebody who wants it or is against you. There's that. You can see that I don't use it because I don't remember the rules. I don't really use them. It's kind of like interludes in a way. It's a great thing. I should, but I keep forgetting, and I don't use them as much as I probably should have. And I do a Savage Worlds YouTube channel, and we've talked about Eric and I have talked about the rules around it, but and how those rules impact the game and that sort of thing. But using it personally, it the players just push things in their own direction. It's like you've got a spaceship. Oh, I want to buy this. I wanted to do this, and Can I get this kind of weapon on it? Well, you can't really. You have to go find someone who sells that. Oh, there's an adventure. Let's go on an adventure to try to find it. And maybe we do that as a quick encounter because we don't want to do a whole adventure, or maybe we will do a whole adventure based on it. So um, it it really kind of falls down kind of that rabbit hole normally. Sorry, I'm just like looking. Yeah, we do give players hindrances mid game. It happens. It does happen because, well, especially if you're doing something with fear, right? They'll get phobias. We had that in the Dragonland or the Dragonlands, the Deadlands Lost Colony game. Some of the players got a phobia. Well, one of them had a heart attack too on the fear table and almost died. But some of them got phobias, and so they did get hindrances. There's obviously hindrances from getting, excess damage, where you get permanent damage, from a killing wound that you're able to survive. So yeah, that has happened. I do allow players to buy off hindrances after a while if they want to. Certain ones, like that phobia, it's like after a while, yeah, you can buy that off if you want. So you're no longer afraid of the thing you're afraid of because you've given yourself some distance, you've thought about it, whatever it is. But certain things you can't, right? But definitely has happened for sure. So anyway, what other cool stuff is going on? So yeah, I'm trying to get back in the rhythm of doing kind of a weekly video. Um, I think somebody, Jeff, you wanted to be on the show, so send me an email, a savageworldsgm@gmail.com. And anyone else interested in dropping a question and get an answer from Eric or I, you can always send an email there. We do listen to those. But definitely trying to get back in the swing, do some more, kind of more, I don't know what the right term is, but like how to play the game versus some rule stuff. I'd like to do more of that for at least a month. And then, we can get back to talking about rules and optimizations and, how to do stuff like that. But that's kind of what I'm hoping to be able to do. So, converting settings and campaigns. So what I do, and I'm saying this is the right approach, is I go for, and I've talked a little bit about this once before, I go for the spirit. So if, let's say, you're trying to bring over, I don't know, pick aliens or something. You're trying to bring over aliens. You want the spirit of it more than, oh, I've got to go and figure out the stat blocks for an alien, and I've got to go figure out the stat blocks for a face hugger. It's more, what's the feeling of the setting, and then how do the rules help with that or not? And sometimes, and I did this with Dragonlance for my campaign conventions, for the Draconians. What So what is this creature all about? Really, it's not. I'm having a hard time explaining it, but there's the acid for blood. There's the this. There's the that. So what does acid for blood mean when it comes to Savage Worlds? Maybe that's you stab it, and in a small burst template, you get acid splash. We're going to call it a burst. So it's 3d6. We're going to this and that. Done. Move on. Because I got the feeling for what I'm trying to do when I'm converting the setting over. Then creature, like combat things, since D&D or a lot of things are so much different, you really got to spend a lot of time thinking through, at least I do, thinking through, like, there's 8 goblins and an ogre. Okay, well, what does that mean for Savage Worlds versus D&D? Well, Savage Worlds, they might be able to get through them easier. They might be able not. It might be harder in Savage Worlds. So you always have to kind of think about that. But again, I'm in the problem department. So if I really don't want to mess with it, well, then don't mess with it, right? Um, Command edges with the necromancer. Nice. Nice. GM War Stories. That's a great one. Yeah, yeah, that's cool. I've had a lot of good. I've had so many good campaigns that though I don't have as many war stories, other than the player who likes to burn everything down. But um, like bad things, I've got great world stories, but not bad things. I've got more as players. I used to when I go to conventions, I used to play, and I had this game I joined where the guy was all about physical things. Like you had to figure out. Like here's one. We had to get into a locked room. So he handed us a padlock, like a high school locker padlock, a rotary one. And none of the people playing the game as people, forget our player characters, could remember how you use this lock. It's like, do you rotate 3 and then we rotate 1 back and then 1 forward? Or was that once around and then once around back? We couldn't remember how to do it. And he just sat there and watched us for 20 minutes trying to figure out how to open a high school locker lock because we didn't remember how. We had the code, right? We figured that out, and that's why he handed us the thing. And we were trying to get into the underground base, and it was just like, dude, the player would know, the character in story would know how to do this. The players do not, but the characters would. So just let the characters do it. And he did that for a bunch of stuff. Like he had a little, like we were supposed to rewire something, so he handed us one of those toy um, circuit things where the kids put the circuits together and then it lights the light bulb at the end if you get the circuit put together. And I got electrical engineering background, so I was like, done. Okay, let's move on. And the other man was like, what? And he was like, how did you get that so fast? It's like, dude, why are you giving us this? My guy in the game would know how to rewire something. I don't have to be the person to rewire it. So that's player knowledge versus character knowledge. Um, and so old school D&D and OSR is very much player knowledge versus character knowledge, because the player knowledge is the one who knows to look under the bed. The character may not, right? So there's nothing wrong with that, but in this particular, it was not fun to go through that. So well, I did for Savage Dragonlance. I do have a couple of videos and a live stream I think I did where I talked about how I was converting a Dragonlance adventure, this Lost Tower of Pallidus I mentioned earlier in the show, and so I went through how I created a Draconian. What was a Draconian like? What would the things in the tower be like? I mean, it's different, right? D&D traps work different than Savage Worlds. And the powers and the way powers would work and stuff like that. So I talked a lot about that in those ones. So if you get a chance to watch those videos, you'll see kind of how my thinking went and for some of that stuff. So yeah, good or bad stories. Yeah, it's good. I mean, people would like to, if people are interested in that, that's super. I want to avoid just kind of only self-reflection and maybe not offering something interesting to people. So, but if you think that would be something cool, I've got a lot of interesting campaigns that we ran over the last 5 years with my gaming group. Lots of really interesting lessons learned and stuff like that. So, it might be fun. So yeah, I don't know. I don't even know how long I've been on. So what does my system say? Does it even tell me? Oh, I've been on an hour and 13 minutes. Long time. Long time. So any other questions? What are you guys thinking? I mean, like I said, I got nothing going on. I was bored, so I figured just live stream. Do you like live streams? I only do live streams normally for milestone events, like when we got 2,000 subscribers, or when we got 3,000 subscribers, or when we hit 200 videos, or then I do live streams, and I usually do try to get some host guests on. Had some folks from Pinnacle before, and I've had other people from the community on, and then we do game show, or we talk, stuff. I always do a game show. So I don't know, just this generic live stream, just getting on and rapping about stuff. Does people think that would be interesting? So I'm definitely interested if that's something um, that people would actually enjoy. I enjoy doing this because, again, I was just interested in getting out there and having a chat on a Friday night. So We yeah, getting the gaming group together and doing a campaign, that would be interesting. They're a little shy. We did an actual play, a Halloween actual play with my gaming group that we published. Didn't go as good as I would have thought it would have been nice to go, but that's the thing. You play the game, and that's how things go sometimes. Just the way it goes. But um, so, so that was interesting. But I think some of them are shy. I don't know if they all would want to be on a live stream or an actual play or whatever. And I'd be like embarrassed because I'm like, no, um, I don't do, I'm not big on doing all sorts of crazy voices. I do mannerisms, but I don't do voices. And um, sometimes I just let players do things that they're competent on. So we don't do a bunch of roles. Sometimes it's like, oh, can I do this? It's like, yeah, you know how to wire something up. So yeah, you don't need to roll fix it roll. You know how to wire something up. Just go do it. Okay, great. And then we move on. So the most hindrances a player take, um, they almost always just take the ones that give them the 2 points for or the points for character creation. Sorry, that's how many they take. I've not had players take more hindrances than necessary to get done. You can for flavor, but the flip side is you don't need to have a hindrance on your sheet to add flavor for your character. If your character likes to um, read books all the time in the back of the wagon and forget about the world and has bad rolls on notice because of that, you don't need a quirk for that. You can just that can just be your character. Yeah. No voices. I can't I there's voices I can try to do, and then it like gets my throat to the point where I start coughing, and it's like, okay, I have to avoid that. So when I do a player character, when I'm a player though, I try to do something that makes my person unique as a player. As a game master, there's just too many folks, and there's just too many characters. And so mannerisms, yeah. I have my famous character that comes back in different settings, who's kind of like uh, an old school what I'm trying to think of, like a municipal guy, Gilded Age, old school. He always goes bully, bully. Oh, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. Bully, bully. And he always comes into every game that there's some guy like that, just because it's a it's a throwback to previous adventures. And then there's always a robot called Pax, because Pax was in our early Chicago Plex one, who was the right hand of the fixer. They never met the fixer, they only met his robot. So every now and then Pax shows up. He might be the guy who helps fix the spaceship, or he might be someone who's instrumental for something. So always like that. It's always fun to have those throwbacks. Always do those throwbacks. So even if it's like so so this confusion on classes or frameworks, it all depends on the setting. So that's a terrible thing to say, but Savage Worlds characters are built like races plus or ancestries plus initial stuff. They're built around 2 points that you have, kind of like 2 points above the baseline. So when you have like a ancestry that has a negative to it and a positive to it, what they're trying to do is balance that out so that when you do go into it, and that's why humans get the free edge, because they don't have those different things to balance out. Savage Pathfinder, they're more powerful, so they're like +4 kind of things as far as the points go there. Um, but yeah, some settings it would like you'd have those archetypes and with all the different edges and things, and then you still get to do normal character creation. It depends on the setting. It really depends on the setting. So that's a really crap answer, but can't answer it better than that. Yeah, Mark, I kind of, I so people, if you love actual plays or live plays or whatever they're called now, more power to you. That you enjoy what you enjoy, and that's absolutely. I personally can't get into them because there's such an investment in time, right? These are like their games are like 3 hours long, just like a game session. They feel very polished, and um, they're not scripted though. I was watching. I don't know if you guys a great one to listen to is Sly Flourish, the guy who did the Lazy Dungeon Master books. He's got a podcast and a YouTube channel, and he does a lot of he mostly D&D. He's a D&D guy, but a lot of good stuff there. And he talks about how, I forget where he found out there was an interview, and like Matt Mercer, it's not scripted. They really are playing the game, but they're just at a different level of voice acting, and they know that they're playing to a crowd. And so, like my player I talk about likes to burn things down all the time. He's not playing to the audience. He's playing to have fun with us. And so, yeah, burning things down is fun. Okay, I'm going to burn stuff down. That might not go over well in a live actual play where that constant would start getting boring to the folks, so you have to keep it alive. But I don't watch a lot of those because they just take a lot of time. You have to invest a lot into them. Um, I don't get to watch a lot of stuff because it takes a long time. Like I'm still hoping that I'll get through the Alien Alien Earth. I mean, I watched the first episode and I still haven't watched the second episode. I mean, I barely got through um, the robot one. I forget. Anyway, but I hardly get through any of the shows because I got so many other things to do. So, oh, so yeah, Seth is cool. So you're asking about, so Steve, you're asking about the party needs to fail at a task to take the story where you want it to go. From a personal standpoint, if the players have to fail to have something happen, you have to also have the side of it if they succeed. Again, you're in the problem department. You want them to fail because that like they need to get captured because that makes it, but they might not get captured. So make sure you have the story can go in an interesting direction if they succeed. Um, but if you really need them to fail, don't make them roll. If anytime you roll, there's a possibility that they can succeed. If you need GM fiat and say that this is what happens, then that's what happens. And sometimes if they need to be captured, okay, now there's 100 guards. Are you really going to attack 100 guards? And if they do, well, then the chips land where they may. Then again, you're in the problem department. Here was the problem. You're going to get captured because you have overwhelming odds against you. Oh no, we're going to attack. Okay, all right. Well, you're going to attack. Um, let's deal the cards. Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess you don't watch some of the actual plays because they have a lot of. So I mean, I guess there's so many different levels of production and skill involved in it. People who look like they're just hanging out on a table and there's a lot of dead air while they're like looking through rules and stuff. I'm sure that would just be like atrocious and get really old really, really fast, I would imagine, personally. So, yep, any die can ace at any time. And that's another saying I use. Any a a peasant with a pitchfork can take out the biggest hero because of exploding dice. So just keep that in mind. So this is where players who play D&D are used to when they get to a certain level, a kobold is absolutely nothing to them. It's just 5 things to kill as I wade through them, and their 1 hit point they might do to me. Nobody cares. That's not a Savage Worlds thing. That kobold could get a raise and then roll raise on damage and have an exploding dice, and before you know it, you're rolling for 3 wounds. So you're trying to soak 3 wounds. So that goes back to when you're taking campaigns and modifying them. Keep that in mind too, right? So if this really should be a cakewalk encounter just to set up something else, okay, maybe it's not 10 of these things, maybe it's 5. Or it's like we know the players are going to wade through extras like they're nothing, right? I mean, so yeah, there should be more than 5 kobolds. There should be 10 of them because the players are just going to wade through them, and we need it to be tougher. And the wild card kobold leader can't be exposed right away versus, you know, the in D&D they just might have more hit points and so they're fine to be slogging around. But so yeah, it's one of those things that you have to kind of keep in account. So do you ever solo play? I do not solo play. I do one-on-one play with players. So I have done like GM player where the player is you know, doing role playing and working against the environment and that sort of stuff. But I've never done solo play. It's an interesting concept. It really is. And there's some products. I think there's a Savage Worlds. You'll have to look on Drive Through RPG. There's a swag product that's all about taking Savage Worlds and making it so that it works more with solo play. You know, obviously you need a lot of random tables and use stuff like that to be able to do it. Or I guess ChatGPT might help. I don't know. I've never used ChatGPT for gaming stuff. I've used it a lot for programming stuff, you know, to solve a problem, but I've not really used it for gaming stuff. I'm wondering if people have and really find that useful. So yeah. It sounds like a lot of people are annoyed by actual plays except for the good ones. So, and there's only so many good ones, right? um, the oh, I'm trying to think. There's a couple of really good Savage ones. The Knights of the Smith's dinner table. They do a good job. Oh my God, they're gonna kill me that I forgot the name of the other one. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I love you guys too, but I just for the math. Oh my God, it goes right on my brain. Well, it's what happens when you're old. It's what happens when you're old. Things you forget, start forgetting stuff. So, um, oh, Savage World Solo Guide. There you go. I don't know if it's any good or not. I haven't downloaded it. Would that be interesting too? Just like go if I went and bought a bunch of swag stuff and just went through it and talked about it, you know, what I found. And I did that once a couple of times where I found some interesting swag stuff. And so I pulled it down like we did the Sprawl Runners. Eric and I did a review of that one because it was kind of hot on as a swag product. And so we pulled it down and we looked at it and talked about it and but that it might be interesting because I had every time there's like the swag awards, I think, oh, I should download all those swag products and then talk about them. But if people are really going to be interested, or is that just going to be like, you know, useless stuff? So, um, yeah, thanks, Mark. That's the right name. Knights of the Smith Dinner Table. There's another one I'm trying to think of that I can't think of. So, two. So there's two of them that are big that are really good. So, and that's who I'm apologizing to. The second people that I forgot. So, um, yeah. And so Savage Worlds community is interesting. Really, uh, you know, it's still small enough and you know people still can. I mean, I have 3,000 subscribers and I get about 500 views on an open video, you know, initial video, um, versus the like Professor GM or Bob the World Brother, any of those guys who are all D&D. They get so many more, but it's much more interesting community. So the posts and the comments and stuff are much more interesting. And then you know the fact that you know Shane might show up and talk about your video or comment on your video. It's kind of it's definitely cool. So Happy Monster. I don't know. I'm sorry. I apologize that I can't remember everything. So so I keep books on my shelf. That's why I have all these PDFs because I can't remember. So um yeah. So well, that was kind of fun. I don't know. You guys got any other questions? I mean, it's really nice that people showed up. I find that fantastic that actually people saw that the live stream was going on and felt compelled to jump on. I thought it would just be me bleeding to the air for a while, but uh, yeah. So I appreciate everybody joining. It's been a lot of fun. If you got any, drop them in the chat real quick if you got any questions. Otherwise, I might call in tonight now that I am no longer bored and I had a lot of fun with you guys. Was there any other questions I missed? Mythic GM 2E is the how to solo guide. Okay. Is that a Savage Worlds thing or is that just general? A video about finding players? Oh my God, you're asking the wrong guy. I spent a long time trying to find players. That's why I do almost all online stuff because, and that's one thing that Roll20 had that was really awesome when I was on Roll20 and not Foundry. It has a really good looking for group function where you can post and find people and kind of interview them if you want to call it that, and then bring them into your Roll20 game because they already have a Roll20 ID and everything. And that's where I found these players. Most of my players I found that way, and then through a couple of friends and stuff like that. My current game group, um, it a lot of them came to me from Chicagoplex when I did that on Roll20. And I said, "Hey, I'm doing a cyberpunk game. Here's all about it. Here's what's interesting and special." And I got a couple of players that way. And then we've had others that people known come in and stuff like that. But I am probably the worst person to tell you how to find players. Your local friendly game store is a good place to go. Probably in a lot of cases. I'll ask Eric. Eric about finding characters, maybe or players, because Eric's been in a lot of different stuff and a lot of different people that he's worked with. He's even done some actual plays online, broadcasts. So maybe he's got some secret sauce that he knows about, and it would be maybe a great video for him to do if he had some ideas. It's get him doing something that's not just a player's guide. That maybe is a little something like that. I'll see what he thinks. He might be interested in that. Oh, playtesters. Oh, okay, playtesters. Well, if it's a Savage Worlds game, based game, there's the Savage Worlds Reddit community is pretty interesting. I don't think anybody would fault somebody for posting a looking for people to do a playtest on a setting in this official Savage Worlds Facebook group. If you're not part of that, you should be. There's also the unofficial Savage Worlds Discord server, which I used to be very do a lot, but I have a hard time with Discord. Discord just too much stuff. I can't keep up with it, so I just kind of not. I miss the web boards. I could keep up with those, but Discord just pours through. But that would be something that also you might be able to. I think they might have a looking for player section on that one. That might be good. Um, Yeah, random's too many horror stories. But if you're trying to play test, you need some of the horror stories. If you're playtesting something that you want to use at a convention or you need a little of that. You don't want to have perfection, right? Because when you get at the table in your convention, you're going to have people coming from left wing, people who've never played, or people who are murder hobos, and having a chance to see how your adventure plays out. Because like when I design an adventure for a convention, I try to have little bits for everybody, so that there's a chance for the people who like to attack to shine, the talkers to shine, the puzzle solvers to shine. Everybody's got this opportunity to shine as they're going through. Other people design adventures differently. I think I had Peter Saloon on and talked about he builds the adventure and then he tells people, and I'm talking about for convention games, he tells them what they can expect. So if you're looking for, this is a mind, thoughtful game where it's not murder hobo or whatever the description might be, but he tells people exactly what he's expecting. Me, I just kind of do adventures where there's a little bit for everybody. So if I get somebody at the table who really likes to kill things, there's a chance to really kill things. But that's how I used to do that. So um, yeah, Savage Rifts. People keep telling us we should do videos on Savage Rifts. I do not. Savage Rifts is like a whole different thing. It's Savage Worlds, but it is Gonzo Savage Worlds. Because of the high power and the high, damage and everything that makes Rifts. It's kind of like Savage Pathfinder, right? It's Savage Worlds, but it's got it's so much more fantasy D&D, I guess Pathfinder flavorish. Savage Worlds Rifts is just Gonzo. It's just crazy. We use that to help with our game where we were doing superpowers, along with the superpowers companion for players, and it's Gonzo. That's all I can say. It's crazy. So yeah, yeah. Savage Worlds makes it playable, but still Gonzo. It's like crazy. It's like nuts. It's like I. It's like the only thing, the thing. What have I've stolen some setting rules from it, but that's kind of the limit of what I've done with Savage with riffs. Um, Blaze of Glory is the key one that I've stolen from Savage Riffs. So yeah, that's true. A lot of Savage World stuff, and I've had lots of settings that I haven't been able to play yet. Lots of settings. You know, well, part of it is because being like a YouTube channel person, I buy them so I can talk about them and not do. I don't really do reviews. I do more walkthroughs, or somebody lets me take a pre-release copy. Um, and the difference between a review and a walkthrough is a walkthrough talks about what's interesting about it, what it's trying to accomplish, what kind of setting rules are there, how it puts it together. But it's not let me tell you why this setting rule they built is garbage because it's doesn't do this and it's not balanced. I don't do reviews in that regard. Eric and I did a few reviews, and um, I think you get too much of your own bias in it. Then it's like what I like versus what other people like. So like I did a overview like Crystal Hearts. I just talked to that team, and I long time ago did a Crystal Heart overview, and it's not the setting that I would necessarily probably play, but it's got a lot of interesting, cool stuff in it that might people would really gravitate towards. So it's better to talk about what it has than why it's not something that's good for you. So um, yeah, cool. Yeah, there's so much, and that's the cool thing from settings. If you get a lot of different settings, there's a lot of different setting rules that might be applicable to the game that you're doing that you can leverage. And of course, you can always write your own setting rules. That's the nice thing about Savage Worlds is, and Eric does this. Eric loves to like he did a Savage Fallout. He's doing a Savage. He was trying to do a Savage version of um, Cyberpunk 77. Is it 77? 76? I don't know. I've never played the game, but um, so he was trying, and he gets very into the setting rules and building on top of powers and stuff like that. And so Savage Worlds is really easy to bring your own powers to the table, bring your own flavors, your own setting rules that mean something to you, that gives flavor to your adventure. And you can do that just from your campaign standpoint. You don't even need a setting. It's just my campaign. Here's interesting setting rules that make sense for what I'm trying to accomplish. So, um, yeah, it's cool stuff. Cool stuff. Yeah, 77. Thank you. Um, oh, yeah. Yeah, I've seen reviews of Savage Worlds where it's like a little they just don't get it. Maybe like me if I did well, I shouldn't say that because I read a lot of role playing books, and so I've got an appreciation for them. But it'd be kind of like a Savage Worlds person doing like a review of Monster Hearts or something, and then like, oh, it was just too there was too much love story in it. Well, that's the point, right? I mean, yeah, yeah. So cool. Um, yeah. So must be getting late. Most play. I'm on the West Coast now, so it must be getting pretty late where most people are. Which I'm guessing is it's 8:30 here, so 11:30 on the East Coast. 10 o'clock, 10:30 Midwest. Yep, starting to get late. So I don't know where you guys are all from, but I appreciate hanging out. Um, so what I heard in summary, I don't have ChatGPT doing a transcript. So would like to hear some horror stories. Um, would like to hear some more about Session Zero and how we handle it. Um, oh, I already forgot. See, I do. I guess I do need ChatGPT to summarize everything for me. Um, How about rundown for first time GMs? You know what? Hold on. I'm going to like actually take a note here. So now this is just like in meetings. Um, this is very exciting television right now. All right. So I took a note because I have to take notes. Yeah, oh, yeah. Somebody really didn't know the game, Mark. They didn't know about exploding dice, but yeah, I appreciate that you guys appreciate what we're doing. It really is. It's a passion project, right? Because I have a Patreon, and the money I've gotten from Patreon is like nothing, but it's enough to pay for hosting for a year, which is because I have a website so that people can go find stuff, and there's a one place stop to go for tabletoptango.com kind of thing. So but it doesn't there's no money in Savage Worlds YouTube channels. There's nothing here. So it's got to be a passion project. You got to do it because you love the game and you love the stuff you're doing. So so yeah. Um, so if people think that this would be fun to do, I might, if I get, I might pull this off again in the future, depending on how. Maybe it'd be a Friday thing when the game group's not going. I don't know. That'd be kind of fun to try it. So, um, so Eric, you just stumbled on the YouTube channel. There is a playlist called "A Great Place to Start." Now it's big now. Now it's probably got 30 videos, but it's got a lot of stuff in it, like basic core rules, tips on using core rules. There's learn Savage Worlds in 5 minutes. There's a bunch of stuff like that. So instead of 250 videos to go through, there's a much smaller set that just kind of has some good information on kind of the basics of the game, and then you can grow to the other content as you go along. But that's something that might help out. That I think I've added too many videos to it. It really should only be like a 15 video playlist, but I think it's like 30 now. Because it's like, oh, this is a good standard rules question. Oh, this is about dramatics tasks. Maybe that should be in a great place to start. So, um, yeah. All right. So if every so yeah, dead is dead. Yeah, there you go. So hey, appreciate everybody, really do. I am so thrilled that folks felt compelled to jump on and join me. I think the conversation that we had was so rich. Lots of really cool stuff, lots of really cool thoughts. Definitely appreciate that. I'm not bored anymore. That was fun. And then I might, maybe I'll do this more often. I tried to ping Eric and get him on, but he had stuff going on. So, which he should have been nothing because we had game tonight. So, but I think he had stuff coming up. But so maybe when we have some cancellations, maybe I'll just jump on and take a